Hello and welcome to Eavesdropping at the Movies. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jose.
And we've just been to see Cabaret.
Yes.
From 1972. One of these films that is set 40 years ago and is now more than 50 years old. It's closer to the time in which it's set than it is to today.
It is.
So it's an interesting historical artifact on its own.
It is.
I'd never seen this. I knew a lot about it. I knew some of the songs. And I knew of, you know, the MC character, and obviously Liza Minnelli. This made her a superstar. But I'd never seen it. You must have seen this endless times.
Well, I mean, it's a really formative film for me for all kinds of reasons. I first saw it with my mom and my sisters on TV. Yes, and, you know, you can imagine there was... Like my mom was so tense watching it with us. Yeah. I think she couldn't believe what she was seeing. So I won't say any more than that. I'm very curious to know what you think.
I didn't know so much about it. You know, it's the story of these international libertines, pleasure-seeking young people in Weimar, Berlin in 1931. And I mean, I really didn't know anything about it, so the whole story is new to me, and I thought it seems, maybe even by today's standards, but certainly imagining 1972 standards, quite daring.
Well, actually, I think it's a film that could only have been made in that period around 1972. Actually, it could not be made now.
Yeah, go on.
The women's liberation movement was brewing, the gay liberation movement was brewing, art cinema had influenced American cinema, and for a brief moment different kinds of films could be done. It was distant but close enough to Nazism, that you could have kind of a critical, perspective, but distant from it. I think some of the things in the film would have been too raw, just like 10, 15 years earlier even, right?
I feel that you could see a film like this coming out of Europe today. It feels unlikely you would see one coming out of the US, as this did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
it's a really positive surprise in all these ways because of the attitude that it has towards alternative sexualities and alternative sexual lifestyles and sex generally as something that can be had freely, is not necessarily... I mean, it can affect the characters' relationships. You know, when someone, the Liza Minnelli character, is extremely sexually liberated, and Michael York character is the opposite.
Yes.
And obviously it affects him when she is involved with other people, but I would say it's more that when she's romantically involved with someone else than sexually. It's connected, obviously, but it's the idea of the ability to give herself emotionally to someone else rather than sexually that I think affects him. But then you have this reveal that he is bisexual. A reveal, maybe not. I mean, it's kind of implied early. You can certainly read it in him, but then it becomes clear at one point in the film. So he has a certain liberated attitude towards sex because he says that he's been sleeping with the same guy that she has. You know, it reminded me obviously of The Blue Angel, which we saw, the staging and the production of those cabaret numbers. I think it's interesting. I was just reading something that says it's sort of seen as a musical for people who don't like musicals. I think that's probably got something to do with the fact that all the music is diegetic. The songs are songs on stage in the film. They're not characters bursting into song, you know, in the way that people imagine. People who don't
interesting, yes.
You know, and the same goes for Tomorrow Belongs to Me. That's a character singing a song to a group.
Yes.
So I think that kind of gives you a way in to enjoying it as a musical if you object, if the idea of the musical and people bursting into song disgusts you. Well, this isn't like that. And I think that's interesting. You know, it's not a jukebox musical. The songs are written for it, including Tomorrow Belongs to Me, because that's sometimes been thought of it's such a believable Nazi song
Yes.
that people actually think it is one that the film reproduced, which it's not. It was written by 2 Jewish songwriters. It has been kind of adopted to certain degrees by Nazi groups and fascist groups in the last 50 years. It's just an example of why irony can't beat people who have no irony, which is what fascists are. And the undercurrent, I was thinking throughout, the rise of fascism in impending Nazi Germany is depicted throughout. Not for a little while at the start, but then we start seeing people with Nazi armbands. We start seeing people getting beaten. So the first thing is the guy who wants to sit in the club and is kicked out, and then we see the guy kicked him out, the manager, having the shit beaten out of him for doing so. By the end of the film, those Nazis are sat in the front row.
Yeah, I mean, the film is beautifully structured because it really does show that rise very systematically, right? So I think in the first opening number, if I'm not mistaken, the Joel Grey, Master of Ceremonies, pokes fun at Hitler, right? Does the thing with the mustache, right?
Yeah, that may not be the first. It's where they have the mud fight, I think, and he puts them on his upper lip and pretends it's a Nazi mustache. But yeah, it's fairly early on.
But by the end of it, it's all Nazi, right?
Yeah.
And it charts kind of the fights between the communists and the Nazis, and so I mean, it is really kind of quite systematic to show that development, and do it basically through the cabaret.
Yeah. So I'm thinking to myself throughout the film, I see this as the backdrop. I understand that, but how is it connecting to these characters? It most clearly connects to the Jewish heiress character, who the one character is falling in love with, because she's Jewish, and that's brought up, that's fairly explicit. But in other words, I'm thinking, how does it connect? And what I ultimately kind of realise is, I think it's a subtle thing, but, fascism is about certainty. Binaries, left and right, good and bad, gay and straight, and they're all connected to what's good and what's bad. And the way that the main characters in this live is about blurring boundaries, or learning how to blur boundaries, or kind of living in a world in which those boundaries can be blurred, and understanding things as equal. But it's like, it's super subtle. It's not a connection that the film is ever explicit about. It's there for you to see it, I think, but that is what it is saying. There are certainties, the way one ideology thinks, and the film is supportive of a different kind of ideology. That's right. Which sees equalities and things. Yeah. I mean, I think the attitude towards homosexuality, or bisexuality, homosexuality, but it's all kind of tied up in there. Really surprised me.
Well, it was so influential, you can't imagine. I mean, I think a lot of people of a certain generation had their coming out moment via this film, right? Because, Michael York was already a figure, I mean, he's been in Romeo and Juliet and Accident and so on, so he was a name. And for him to be so beautiful and to be playing this particular character, right, in a major kind of musical was quite something. And also the way that it's dealt with. So, for example, I remember being 10 or 14 or whatever I was when I saw this on television. I mean, I would have been 10 when the film came out, so showing on television maybe 4 years later. And just being very affected by the discussion between Liza Minnelli and Michael York, where she throws herself at him, he pulls back, she realizes he's gay, and, oh, why didn't you tell me? Yeah, like, it's great, we could be friends. And actually, that kind of response to a kind of coming out was so utopian. It was kind of, it was so great to see that kind of response instead of something that would have been, I don't know, more guilt-ridden or Sturm und Drang and so on. This was kind of light and funny and loving.
Well, the funny is interesting because I was thinking, one thing that I really like about this whole aspect is that it's not the basis of a joke. It's taken seriously.
Yes. As
something that this character is. When he reveals that he's been sleeping with the same guy she has, it's not that, kind of, I never wanted to believe you were gay or something like that, which it could have been. It was the betrayal of it.
Yeah. It was the
that
feeling.
She responds to.
Sure.
That's all. But it's the betrayal is not, okay, so you were gay all along. The betrayal is, you never told me that you were sleeping with him. It's the act. I think that's less true of what minor element there is of a trans. There's a trans character. Or, no, trans is too strong, and it probably wouldn't have been the way in which we talk about trans people has changed so much over the years. So I don't want to put too modern a reading on what it's showing at the time.
Still, there's a difference, because there's Joel Grey puts on drag, so so there's a difference between a man in drag and actually somebody who's kind of clearly passing as a woman to the point of prostituting herself, but has a male member, right?
But that's like the 2 or 3 times that comes up. That is a joke in the film. It's a joke when he's standing at the urinal and this character comes in. It's a joke when
I don't know if it's a joke, actually.
I think it's there to get laughs.
I don't think so. No. I think it's there as a moment of awareness, because if you remember at the end of that scene, it's like Michael York looks back.
Yeah, and there's a smile and an acceptance.
No, but almost a form of cruising. He doesn't just walk out the door.
That's true.
He stands there looking, right? So I think he's surprised, and he maybe can't believe what he's seeing. But actually, what he's seeing is not without an enticement.
No, sure. But, I mean, there's definitely. It's. I don't think it's a bad joke. I think I like the joke. It's got a response in the audience when he takes a look, and then there's a bit of a double take, and then he looks down, and there's a look on his face of fucking hell, it's bigger than mine. Sort of thing.
Yes.
So definitely a joke made of. And then when Liza Minnelli passes the guy that she's with onto him,
is a joke, I think. Yeah.
And they say as much. They say, he's going to get the shock of his life when he finds out.
If he finds out.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I didn't find that.
Yeah. It's not necessarily the most negative thing. It's a very small part of the film, but I read it as more of a joke at the expense of a kind of character, as opposed to an understanding of a kind of character.
Yeah.
But that's a very minor thing.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, maybe a trans person will tell us their view. In my view, I kind of I can't say it's sympathetic, actually, because that person is never given a point of view or even a line. I don't think they speak a line.
No.
It's just someone who's in that club, right?
Yeah.
That is kind of part of the diversity of people that club. But what I think is interesting about is the way that the club is used, because the club is the prism for all of German society, really, and the changes that German society is going through. And actually, I think what most struck me in this viewing was the brilliance of the editing.
Yeah.
The way that you have a musical number or something, and then the musical number cuts to an event. Right.
Yeah, intercut with.
Yeah, intercuts, in ways that don't follow logically, that are often divorced in time, in space, from kind of what is going on in the club. But, through that kind of editing, that is not montage editing, it's just an intercutting of something else into, what is happening in the club, you get that sense of how that is a reflection. The club is a condensation of things that are happening kind of throughout the culture.
Yeah, a condensation and a reflection of. Yeah. And the song that is used comments on the themes in the air at the time. Money. Money is actually not a song that's intercut. It's not a number that's intercut with anything else. That stands on its own, and we see it played through. But that's the point in the film at which we're talking about the allure of money. This new guy comes in who Liza Minnelli starts going for, and starts showering them with money and everything.
Buys them.
You basically. Get the buys them all this stuff. There's the. I don't know if it's a song actually, but it's certainly a dance piece where they're all dressed in lederhosen and they're slapping Bavarian, and that's intercut with the club owner getting the shit kicked out of him outside.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got violence on stage that's funny and charming and playful, and then violence that's very serious and threatening on the outside. And that was quite shocking, I thought, actually. You know, surprisingly effective.
Yes. There's a lot of those beatings. Yeah. And actually it's interesting because near the beginning it's the club owner. Near the end it's the hero. So you can see how that violence, you know, spreads more and more and more, really. Yeah.
I was thinking, you know, obviously we have the point in this that you mentioned where the MC gives himself a Hitler moustache and plays up to the crowd. We also have a number which straightforwardly takes the piss out of goose stepping and the Nazi movement. I was thinking, you know, the events that are depicted are of people at the time taking piss out of the fascists at the time.
Yes.
And today, are there, you know, similar, like drag clubs, I guess, would be a kind of equivalent today, doing the same with Trump and the Proud Boys and the MAGA people? I don't know, because I'm not in that world.
Well,
are they
you
doing
know,
that? I hope they are.
Yeah. I mean, they would normally have done. I mean, obviously, I can't speak with any certainty because it's a long time since I've gone to places like that. But they certainly would have done.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, kind of, you know, those things exist. But, you know, I think rather than look at it as with any kind of verisimilitude, I think the film's genius. Because I do think it's a really great film. Yeah, like, you know, seeing it again today, I'm kind of, you know, once more agog with admiration, really. I think, you know, I love how the beginning, you have all of these images, which are taken from, I think it's George Grosz paintings.
Right.
Yeah, like, you know, the lady with the monocle. Yeah, I mean, those are all kind of almost reproductions of famous kind of expressionist paintings, really, which happened just before, their 20s paintings or post-World War One into the 20s kind of paintings. So, you know, in the nightclub, when you begin with figures from that, and then at the end, you have the distorted mirror and it settles on the Nazis, right? And so you have kind of like, you know, a movement from one thing to the other. I love that. I love a lot of the use of imagery, and in fact, color, you know. It's interesting seeing it again this time because, of course, what you associate with the film and with Liza Minnelli is that Louise Brooks kind of bob, that 1920s haircut. Yeah. But actually, you know, there are so many other moments of kind of design. I mean, there's a scene where she goes to see her father, and you have like kind of this little boy with the hair wetted down and pulled back with a white bow, right? And then kind of, you know, there's that bit where she's wearing that hat with the yellow flowers. And I mean, actually it's interesting because or the bit where she's dancing Money, 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 right? Which has the headband and the feather. Yeah, though that, you know, you see the bob. But actually, kind of, you know, I was surprised by the variety of ways that it evoked the 20s. The bit in the canoe, where she's holding the umbrella, it is kind of like a real flapper image from the 1920s, right?
Yeah.
So the film is so conversant with that visual vocabulary, and it's kind of using it kind of, you know, so beautifully and intelligently, really.
Yeah. My understanding is that although everything is fictionalized, this has basis in real people. This is based on a real person's memoirs of the time and his group.
I mean, I can give you a bit of background in that because, you know, it's Christopher Isherwood and W.H. Auden who basically moved to Berlin because Berlin was suffering the biggest depression, and they as Englishmen could go there and basically Berlin was open, right? But also with the exchange rate, they could live there, write their novels and poetry, and basically rent young boys, really. I mean, they went there for the boys, right? Like, kind of, you know. So that's the basis of the story. And then it got made into a play, in the 1950s called I Am a Camera, right? And then kind of it evolved into this Kander and Ebb musical, which Judi Dench played in London.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And interestingly, Liza Minnelli auditioned for the Broadway role, but she didn't get it. Yeah.
She's amazing in this.
She is amazing.
I mean, really magnetic. I've not seen many of her films. I'm mostly familiar with her from Arthur, 1981, I think. I love her in that. I think she's wonderful in that. You see a lot of the same kind of attitude and stuff in this. She's really impressive in Arthur. I think she makes that film work in all sorts of ways. And I know her from her public image in her later years, and her marriage to David, what's his name?
Guest.
David Guest. And that being a particular sort of, certainly in the British press, there was a huge thing about them and their divorce, and because he's a kind of figure over here, or was. And I know her from Arrested Development, in which she kind of plays against type a little bit, plays with and against type. There's a wonderful thing, they get her into a gay club in that show, which is fantastic. It's just about they did that at all,
Did you not see New York, New York?
No, but there's a joke in Arrested Development where they're in that club, and the one character goes up on stage and is singing New York, New York, and she says to herself, "Everyone thinks they're Frank Sinatra," because she first sang that song.
Yeah.
But Sinatra's the one who
It's a
has the credit
great
for
number.
it. So anyway, I think she's incredible in this. Like she has the scene that I think is her best, excluding I think the dance numbers, which particularly her first is a remarkable performance. But outside of those, the scene in which she is all pissed off and wants a drink, and Michael York won't let her, and then the characters invite themselves to have tea with this heiress. She's fucking wonderful in that.
She's wonderful.
Really funny.
Yeah.
A really sour, sulking presence. Who's extremely funny.
She's extremely funny. My favorite bit though is the post-abortion thing in bed, where all of a sudden she looks so young and so vulnerable, and she's so understanding of his response.
Yeah,
I think that's beautiful and so restrained. Yeah, because I am one of those people which I'm a fan, but I'm such a bad fan in the sense that I love her in this, and she is the best concert I've ever been to in my life, right?
Yeah.
1980, 1981, Place des Arts, Montreal. She got like a 20-minute standing ovation, which is like unheard of. I'd never seen anything like that. People were stomping on, As a live performer, she was amazing. And yet, ever since when I see her on television or being interviewed or in other things that I've seen, she comes across as like so phony and mannered, and it's almost like kind of so I have this memory of loving her, and then every time I see her she doesn't quite live up to the memory, and so it was really great to see this film today and say no, she really was great.
So funny though, because in this and also in Arthur, the two characters that she plays in those films share a certain phoniness. It's a playful phoniness. Yes, darling, of course, darling, but it's always played up. She doesn't really believe that she's like that in either film. And the films give her the ability to play human moments where she really is herself and understands that scene you're talking about in this post-abortion. She's not behaving that way, that show-off phony way that she is at other times when she's in a good mood and whatnot. In Arthur, that's much less the balance. The balance is she's kind of a quote-unquote real person most of the time. But when she gets to play up, it's wonderful. And so, it's so interesting that, like, the film versions of her have the phoniness, but they give access to a real person underneath, whereas the real-life person seems to be just phony.
Yeah. Maybe, for good reasons. But anyway, she is amazing in this. But, so is everything else. I think Jeffrey Unsworth, who did the cinematography, is a British cinematographer. I mean, it's just beautiful, right? And it's so expressive. And some of the compositions are so wonderful. Yeah, all those scenes where they're shot from below when they're dancing, or the scene, the two shot with Michael York and Liza Minnelli, you know, or kind of these enormous close-ups that you get at key moments. Like, I think Michael York only gets one really towards the end. Really beautiful. And all of the shots of the cabaret, the lighting of some of the numbers, extraordinary. And this is not to speak of the choreography, which is still so, even after 50 years of Fosse, it's still so unusual, so hypersexualized, kind of shocking.
I wanted to know what you thought about this, because this is really my first exposure to Bob Fosse.
Yeah, well, I love him, and, you know, I think it's great, but very unusual.
Yeah, so tell me about what makes it unusual.
Well, the way that the body is pointed, the hips, the use of the hands, you know, the bit where she's on the chair, and she's got one foot leaning on the chair, and then her whole body kind of bowed back. I mean, those are
the body like stretches out in angular ways,
and is open.
Yeah.
So open and available, super highly sexualized, right?
Yeah.
You know, so you know, I think
that moment, I think it might be in the first number where they're introducing the girls, and there's a thing where they're kind of all leant back, standing side onto the audience, and they sway just their hips, you know, in kind of circles. I thought that's an unusual movement, and again hypersexualized, because it's about, you know, just draw attention to the groin, you know.
I think what I also noticed this time was how great a dancer Liza Minnelli is, and really where it becomes most evident is not when she's doing the choreography, but actually often just when she's in movement and all you see is her back, and it's so expressive. Just the things that she can do with her body, right? Like, you know, the way that she moves it, it makes it expressive even from the back, right? So, you know, I have a newfound appreciation for that, really.
Easy to see today why this is a star-making performance.
For sure.
Really easy. This is the film with the record for the most Oscars won without winning Best Picture. Won 8. So Bob Fosse for director, Liza Minnelli for actress, Joel Grey, the MC, for supporting actor, art direction, Jeffrey Unsworth for cinematography. He's one of the great cinematographers.
Without a doubt.
Best film editing, best scoring, adaptation and original song score, and best sound. So, you know, won technical Oscars and artistic Oscars, but didn't win the big one.
And the big one was won by The Godfather. You know, so it's basically, you know, two masterpieces, kind of. So I find that, like, completely understandable. I wouldn't be able to choose between them. I mean, The Godfather is one of my all-time favorite films, and so is this one. Yeah.
I've sort of seen The Godfather. I fell asleep in the cinema.
Oh my God, you have to see
it. I know,
it's so great.
I was knocked out, and then I sort of woke up around the time that everyone gets murdered. and then fell asleep again.
It's great.
I must actually watch it.
We should do it together. We should do the whole series, actually.
Maybe so. Yeah. At some point, it will come back in cinemas, because it's one of those that tends to.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's such a huge film. So, this is a. I mean, I didn't expect not to like this. I just didn't know what to expect. It turns out.
Yes.
And it's a real pleasant surprise in the things that it's talking about, and the way that it's talking about and depicting them. And like I say, the subtle way that it combines the background theme of the rise of fascism with everything that's going on in the foreground, which, you know, for the most part, like I say, doesn't explicitly connect to it, but it certainly does. It's there.
It does.
I was sort of thinking, how does class play into this as well? Because class is certainly a theme in the film. You know, you've got these two kind of lower class immigrants. You know, at least they're almost like gap year people, the way they're living there, and then they're becoming intertwined with a couple of upper class people, and you know, the one of them is showering them with gifts, the other one has fears for herself and for her fortune. She thinks the one character, you know, is trying to marry her for her fortune. I'm thinking, how does that play in? Does, you know, is it a case of? The thing is with the heiress character, who's Jewish. Although we don't see kind of what will ultimately become of her, we see them get married, but that's not something that will protect her.
No.
In the long run.
Well, actually, one of the things that I think makes the film so great is that the boyfriend knowingly chooses Yeah. So he knows what the dangers are in being Jewish.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he chooses it. Though actually what we know is that it wouldn't have protected him anyway. Yeah. Because, I mean, you could move towns and live as a non-Jew and pass as a non-Jew, but actually, as soon as the Great Solution started, you wouldn't be able to fake your grandfather's birth certificate, right?
Yeah.
So, but that also, and I think this is why the film is so great, because it leaves those questions overhanging. Yeah. What happens to them? They're rich enough, maybe they ended up in America or Argentina or something, right? Like, they're rich enough to go if they went in 1933. If they waited too long,
The question of passing and not passing and hiding and not hiding occurred to me, and it's not something the film presses on. If it wanted to, it would press very hard on, you're going to get found out for X, Y, Z, and what you're going to do about it. Like I say, with the Jewish thing, it presses on that a little bit. But I think there's a certain equivalence between being able to hide yourself as a gay person, being able to hide yourself as a Jew.
Yes.
These are like it's not the same as if you're black, you cannot go around the world not being seen as black. Whereas being Jewish, people do hide. Being gay, people do hide.
Yes.
Definitely feels that there's a certain equivalence there. And the thing is, these people live in a world and they live a lifestyle in which acceptance of each other is normal and positive and healthy. And the question of, well, that's going to become a big problem when the Nazis get into power. Like I say, it's not pushed heavily on because the Nazis are still just a gang of thugs right now. We don't get to the point where Hitler's in power and the rest of it. As I say, Hitler, the only presence of Hitler is that joke at his expense.
But by the end of the film, when you see that the club, the preponderance of Nazi uniforms at the club, that kind of begins to paint another picture. But in fact, there are really interesting historical presents. I mean, in Berlin, a lot of the gay clubs that were attended by SS members were immediately shut down. In fact, I think there's a famous club that actually became a headquarters of the SS. I mean, I could be getting this information wrong, but I think this is what Finn, if I remember what Finn told me correctly, these things happen. So the culture that you're kind of seeing in this club would probably have been all cleaned up and erased 2 years later, right?
I think it's one of the... I mean, you're right, absolutely. Of course, I'm not disagreeing with you. It's also one of those things where an exception is always made for you if you're in the party of power, the position
if you're
of
an
power.
aristocrat or something, sure.
Yeah.
But I think even those people, were ultimately culled. It would be interesting to look at the dates. Early on, yes, and then So I think kind of that's interesting in relation to what the Baron represents in the film. Yeah.
I think his casting, the way he looks, he reflects such the Nazi ideal of the Aryan look.
Yeah, he does, though, from his class point of view, is like he's welcoming the Nazis because they get rid of the communists, which are the biggest threat to the aristocrats because of the Soviet Revolution, the Russian Revolution, right? Yeah, but then kind of, what will he find a few years later?
Well, that's it. He's talking about, we need those guys. I don't like them, but they serve a purpose because they're taking on the communists. And then we will handle them.
Yeah.
And then later on, when they go to that country house in Bavaria, and everyone starts standing up and joining in with the young Nazis on stage and singing "Tomorrow Belongs to Me." I mean, for one thing, it's a reveal. It's kind of not a reveal because the kid already looks super Nazi. But then it is treated as a reveal when you pan down and you see the Nazi armband on. You realise this is a Nazi singing a fascist song. But then everyone standing up and joining in, one by one, is a further reveal that this is not an isolated guy. This is a deeply felt thing amongst the populace to point. And that's when Michael York, as they leave, says, "You still think you can control them?"
Yeah, that's a beautifully nuanced scene, which seems really overt, right? So initially, you're just meant to see this archetypal German poster boy, right? Like blue-eyed, blonde-haired, Then there's the reveal that he is a Nazi, as you would expect. And then you get the feeling that all of these working people, because, they are meant to be ordinary citizens, right? At a pub, drinking, right? So when you're asking the class basis for this, well, this just seems to be like ordinary people. Yeah, not rich, working people. But then if you remember, there's also a cutting into close-up of this old guy who's just disgruntled and suspicious and like
doesn't like these new
doesn't like these Nazis and can't say anything. So I thought that was like beautifully done, that so it's not everybody, but actually now the people who don't like it are silenced.
And there's that moment a little bit later when they go back to the boarding house and everyone's sat around having a drink and reading the paper and whatnot, and one of them's moaning about or basically it's supportive of him. I forget exactly what he's saying, but supportive of the Nazis and saying, we need what they're bringing or whatever the hell it is. And then the old woman says, I wish the Kaiser was still here. There was order in those days. It's just such a funny thing.
Anyway, I think it's a really, really great film. Even that moment where, the abortion moment, right? So they agree to marry, blah, blah, blah. And then you get a sense of what she thinks her life would be like if she had a boy or a baby, right? And actually that montage is where, like, you think it's her imagination, but actually it turns out just to be a boy, probably waiting for some other mother, but for a moment you think it's her imagining her future, but actually kind of it's the present. And I think kind of, the imagery of the ball dropping, and then this cutting, that gives the impression of a present future. It's just beautifully done, really.
Yeah, because you mentioned when we were talking about the musical numbers, the way they're shot and edited, that's not montage, but there is montage, and it's in those moments. Those imaginings of the future, or the expression of what the character is feeling right now, which happens a couple of times. I think it's both times it's Liza Minnelli's internal feelings that come out. Works really, really nicely. It's really, really good editing throughout the film. I mean, it's both a case of the choice of what to show and how to intercut things, or how to put this montage together. It's also the timing. There's a really intuitive feel, I think, to the timing of the cuts.
The film has beautiful timing, and it's a timing that's done through the editing. Right? So that scene that you mentioned with Liza Minnelli, right, where Marisa Berenson comes in and, they talk about boom, psh, boom, psh, whatever, fucking in German. I think a lot of her laughs are achieved, not just through her expression and so on, but actually through the timing of the cuts on her expression.
Because it's so interesting, that scene, actually.
They're beautifully timed.
I was thinking about this because this is something you've talked about before, about how in England there's a huge amount of code used, which is inaccessible to someone whose first language is not English. And you have to kind of learn to understand what English people are saying and how they're saying it. And I think that kind of idea, although only one of those characters is English, plays in there because it's about, ostensibly, an English lesson. Michael York is supposed to be teaching this character English, and then these two other characters are in there to kind of spoil the whole affair. But that scene is all about what's being said that avoids the issue or covers up the issue, because the issue is this social awkwardness and the parts people, the things people are trying to do. So the one guy's in there because he really likes or wants to or sees a way in with a
rich woman,
with the heiress, with the rich woman. And then Liza Minnelli's in there because she objects to being told to get out of a room and not have a drink, and she's in a mood for whatever, she's there to ruin it too. And Michael York is trying to put
to make a living.
He's trying to make a living, and he's trying to not bring this up. He's being very English about the whole thing. So everyone is saying something that they don't quite mean. Everyone is saying something that has a second meaning, a coded meaning. And then it's also all played through this lens of two of the characters, one in particular, really doesn't understand the language enough anyway. So you can get so the one character they're all talking around, the heiress, doesn't understand what all the other characters are understanding about what they're saying and what they're not saying. I thought that it just plays. It's really nicely written and played. I think that scene is wonderful.
I think one of the things about the musical is that it's meant to exude joy and hope and community and aliveness and energy and so on. And of course, this does do some of that, Like certainly in all the musical numbers you have that energy and, and actually community and so on as well. But of course, the thing is, this is like a dystopian musical. Yeah, it's kind of like showing you the move from something free and open to increasing violence and shutting down and and exclusion and murder. In fact,
a world that we know is ending.
Yeah, so it's quite dystopian, really. Yeah,
I mean that may be another reason that it's seen as this musical for people who don't like musicals. It's not all happy and joy at the end. This is looking at dark parts of the world and ending in not so happy ways. I think the ending is brilliant, by the way. Just the structure of the beginning and end, because I didn't know what would happen. And then as soon as you get the close up on Joel Grey at the end, you realise, oh, this is how it's going to end. It's reflecting the start, and so we start off with hello, we end with goodbye. It's nice and polite, and it has that thing of that distorted mirror. When you're talking about the club reflects the world, where it literally does. The film is telling you that. Here is the reflection of the world. At the start, there were no Nazis. At the end, they're in the front.
Well, at the start, not only were there no Nazis, but the two famous images that you see are these mannish women. Yeah. Or, these women with their cigarettes looking quite stern. Yeah, and the monocle. Yeah. So, I mean, they're wearing dresses. Yeah, it's clearly women. But, kind of there's almost like a connotation of lesbianism or a certain kind of transgression anyway, the smoking, the monocle. Yeah. And the ending image is two Nazis. Yeah,
exactly.
So
and a freeze frame on a Nazi armband.
That's right. So that's kind of If the ending is some kind of response to the beginning, that's quite an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, from these mannish women, independent, strong, odd, to these figures of authority and destruction, really. Yeah.
So it was a really surprising, interesting film with a huge amount that I enjoyed. I thought it was really captivating. I thought the performances are wonderful. Really reminded me of The Garden of the Finzi Continis, remember we watched, which had that similar thing of being much closer to the time it's evoking than it is to today. And again,
it also reminded me a little bit of Visconti's The Damned.
Don't know it.
Oh, I thought we might have seen it together.
No.
But it's about upper class Germans who are Nazis, or who support the Nazis. And of course, the eldest son ends up being this gay guy who does imitations of Marlene Dietrich in drag. Yeah. So very different, but it also has that chair Marlene. Because, there is also a nod to Marlene Dietrich, as you said, in The Blue Angel.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
The chair.
It's absolutely building on that.
Yeah. So,
And I think, I think I expected, from what I thought I understood of the film, or its reputation, I expected, like I say, more explicit connections to be drawn between the rise of fascism and what our main characters' stories are. But I think it, which is the case, I think, in The Garden of the Finzi Continis, because it's about you have to, not realising how they have to get out of there, and it's too late by the time. Thinking they're protected, but they're not. Here, though, I think, the way in which Nazism is just around and growing, and people know about it, but don't necessarily do anything or see it as a threat to them, don't understand what a threat it can become, is really reflective of the way most people probably interact with that kind of thing. I think it's true of rises of fascism in various places around the world today. I'm not saying there aren't movements. There are huge movements to fight it and recognise it and oppose it. But I think for a lot of regular people, it's something that you see a bit on the news, you see it kind of around, there's news stories about people being beaten up and whatnot, but it's also something that isn't responded to very much.
What resonated most with me that I see happening is that the people who are marginals and excluded and so on become the worst enforcers of a particular kind of fascist ideology. In the film is the case of the pornographer, right? After all, he's a pornographer. He makes a living selling pornography. And at the end, he's like the worst Nazi, right? Or the old prostitute in the boarding house, who again, from her words at the end, is like, the old lady who is dependent on all of these customers, who initially is like so thrilled and honored to be receiving the Marisa Berenson character, right? And at the end doesn't. It's one very interesting change from the play is that one of the strands of the musical, which I urge you to see, is this really beautiful, touching love story between the lady who runs the boarding house and one of her boarders, who is a Jewish greengrocer. So it's about how their love develops and they're too old, and are they too old for love, but they fall in love anyway, right? And then, of course, Nazism makes their relationship impossible, right? So that, in a way, kind of replaces the Marisa Berenson gigolo story. In the play, it's the old lady in the rooming house and the greengrocer.
Right.
And there's a beautiful ballad attached to it that I think you do hear as non-diegetic music.
Okay.
Heirat. Married. You remember that scene where they're in the woods, and there's this beautiful shot where the relationship is unraveling. So now you see Michael York and Liza Minnelli just in a little corner of the woods before you move on to the scene. And the song that's playing is Heirat, as background music. And I don't think they have a record player there.
No, maybe not.
Maybe they do. But portable record players in 1930, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's portable enough. She picks it up and fucking lugs it from room to room.
That's true.
No, I know what you mean.
But I imagine she must have plugged it somewhere.
No, it's wind-up, isn't it?
It's a wind-up. Okay, so it might be.
There's every possibility, but I mean, I'm kind of joking because like when she picks it up and brings it into his room,
it's such a huge thing.
It's such a huge thing that it's a joke that it's so bloody heavy.
Yeah,
that she's...
I doubt they'd carry it to the woods, right?
So
all right. Well, I'm really
glad I've seen it.
Yeah, I'm really glad you saw it, and I'm really glad you liked it.
Let's mention, by the way, that we saw this at the Mockingbird.
Yes.
In a beautiful screening. In screen one there, which is the larger of the two screens, and a pretty full audience, probably half full, something like that. And
there was a really good crowd. It was a Sunday 5:30 screening, which is not where you would expect, the thing to be, to have the most audience in it. So it had a really good audience. So I hope they have a whole series on musicals, in fact, and I hope the turnout continues to be as good.
We'll have a look at that.
Well, thank you all very much for listening. We're eavesdropping at the movies, and we are on
Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, and YouTube Music. On social media, we're on Facebook and Twitter at Eavesdrop Movies, Blue Sky, eavesdropping.bsky.social, and Instagram at Eavesdropping at the Movies. And the website is eavesdroppingatthemovies.com.
Thank you very much for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.